Hey there, this is Junie and Mochi for Ham and Quackers. This is just a reminder that we will be drawing our 2 tickets to Hamvention 2023 on May 1st at 8 p.m. live on the channel. If you'd like to enter into the drawing, go to our website, www.hamandquackers.com, go to the contact tab, and go ahead and leave us your email and your call sign. And if you win, we'll send you an email. The 2 tickets are separate, just to make sure that you know that. They're not together. So we'll have 2 winners. Alrighty, good luck. 73, quack quack. Hello everyone, this is Junie, N1DUC for Ham and Quackers, and our guest tonight is Peter, K1PCN. Hello Peter, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, Junie?
Well, I asked Peter to come onto the show because, he has some experience with clubs, and I think it's really important that we get to talk about this, and so people know a little bit more about why it's so important to join an amateur radio club. Peter, where is your QTH? Where are you located?
Currently, I'm in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is a town on the southern coast of Connecticut, right on the water. And our club location is Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is the next city over.
All right. Well, I used to participate in this club a little bit more in person because I lived in Fairfield pretty much my whole life, and then I moved down to Mississippi. And Peter is one of the people that I met through this club, and we've had a blast just doing activities. And I wish I could be there a little bit more. So I think we got licensed around the same time. When did you become licensed, and what class of license do you currently hold?
So I was originally licensed in 2012 as a technician. I was at work one day, and I got this flyer emailed to me that there was this free technician class held by this Greater Bridgeport Amateur Radio Club in downtown Bridgeport. And so I signed up. It was like 4 nights, and I took my exam, and then I did absolutely nothing with it for 10 years. And at that time, radios were kind of expensive. There was really no cheap Chinese radios on the market at that time. So fast forward, 10 years goes by, and we're in the middle of COVID, and I get this renewal license from the FCC in the mail. And like, oh yeah, I got to do this. So I started looking around on the internet, and I couldn't believe that you could get a Baofeng UV5R for like $35.
I know. And it's funny. I think it was 2010 that I found out about amateur radio, and I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford it.
Right. Everything was like $200 to $400 for a little Yaesu radio or something like that.
Yep.
And you know what I remember from taking the course is the guys at the club were just so incredibly welcoming. You couldn't ask any stupid questions. They wanted to get you into it. They said, hey, if you buy a radio, bring it over to my house. I'll program all the repeaters for you, it can be very intimidating for a new ham.
It definitely.
But that was in the back of my mind. So anyways, I bought this Baofeng and programmed it. And I looked around, and GBARC has a repeater not that far away. And I looked on their website, and I saw they had a net. So literally, it's kind of a stretch for me to hit the repeater, but I was, during their net, standing on the roof of my house to get as good of a signal, and I was able to check in. The whole group was very, very welcoming. And then it became more of a regular thing. I wanted to hit the repeater better, so I bought a mobile rig that I put in my car, and I was able to check in the evenings. And I started joining some of the club activities. GBARC has a monthly or semi-monthly fox hunt, which I thought was really cool. And as a technician, it wasn't that much money to get into. I could use my Baofeng. I made one of those tape measure Yagis, had a blast with that. And then then COVID came along, and my wife had COVID at that time. You had to quarantine with them, and I was going to be home for 10 days. So I said, hey, let me take one of these online general courses, and basically did it. A month later, I took the test, got my upgrade, and then looked around again, found a cheap Xiegu G90 radio,
Yeah.
and also Parks on the Air was taking off. And I said, all right, well, I don't want to put an antenna on my roof. I only have a quarter of an acre. It's kind of hard to put a long antenna in that. And I started doing some Parks on the Air. And I needed some help. And I reached out again to the club. And so everybody was very helpful. I got to borrow a better antenna. They had coax. I borrowed a tuner for a while.
Yep.
So they had equipment that I could borrow and see, and had the guidance to help me, achieve my goals. And I said they were all very, very friendly. And then about a year later, I upgraded to extra, and now basically I'm helping others.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my job, I have to be somewhat organized, so I became more involved, and that subsequently became I kind of became vice president of the club, and we increased the amount of activities we're doing. We did our what we call it, field day, summer field day, on the rooftop of a local hospital, which was really, really cool. And there were some challenges. We went there for a site visit. And,
Sure.
preparing for field day is almost as much fun as doing field day.
Right.
And
And just to reiterate, you are the president now of the
I
Greater
am the
Bridgeport.
president now.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Of
So,
GBARC. Yep.
right. So the following year, I became president, and we're having various activities. Last weekend was our Parks on the Air spring park appreciation weekend. I went and set up at a local park. We have some newer members that came down and joined me. I helped them set up their Parks on the Air login the night before, an account, and they were able to make their first activations. And I think both of them have been smitten with the bug. So,
Yeah,
so
that
they'll be out
happens.
more. As I said, then in about 2 weeks will be the New England QSO party, and we're going to be doing that as a club event. We've been able to locate one of the highest, or acquire one of the highest hills here in Fairfield. It's town property, and I had to go in front of the commission, the environmental commission, and get permission. And they were very, very receptive to it. And
That's pretty good.
we're gonna send flyers out to the local scouts and to the general public. It's gonna be in the town selectmen's newsletter. So we're hoping to get other people to come and try their hand at ham radio.
Excellent. Excellent.
And then field day will be around the corner.
Right.
And then probably in August, we'll be doing a Lighthouses on the Air.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're keeping it active.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if you answered this question, but what really made you join a club just to begin with? Like, what was the factor there?
Well, so I think studying for my general and extra. Now, I could study really well and I could learn the answers to the test, but there was a lot of questions I really didn't know the answer to. I knew the answer, but I didn't know why and in practicality. And seeing somebody who's more experienced do it, I remember, like, for example, FT8. One of the most important things, the question on the extra exam is that you have to synchronize the time before you start.
Right.
And if you don't know what FT8 is, which I didn't know at the time that I, upgraded to general, that's not so obvious. Now it's really obvious.
Right.
Or the different baud rates, or
Right.
the structures of the QSOs, or CW. I've participated in 3 field day events so far, and every single field day I've learned something new.
That's what it's all about.
So my
That's
first
what it's
field
all
day,
about.
I took the 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift, and I had the radio all by myself with one other more experienced operator. And I had use of the radio the entire night, and that's how I got into single sideband. Our next field day, we all focused on FT8 and CW. So that was great. The third field day, I got into the wiring of the antennas and using diplexers and filters. So I've learned something every single year. And I like ham radio because it's something that you'll never learn everything. You
Correct.
know,
Yes.
you can get into satellites or
Right.
CW or,
There's so many
Earth,
different
Moon,
sub
Earth.
hobbies, right? It's
Right.
almost like you get these categories. You can never be bored, I don't think, with this hobby.
Right. And the club is such a great resource because there's somebody who really likes everything.
Yep.
And if I wanted to get into satellite, there's one member who's really into it. And I think I know what I'm doing.
Right.
But then it comes to a point where you have questions, something's not working, and you have somebody, a great resource that you can reach out to, and vice
Exactly.
versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I have a suggestion for this year's field day. You should do QRP, low power, and try to just work low power the entire time. That's what I do every year. I love it. It's so much fun.
No, we
And
could do that, and we've been thinking about that. We thought about it last year, but some people in the club like their power. The guys who run amplifiers, 100 watts is low power for them.
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, in my previous video, I had discussed how important, like, just taking the technician exam or the general exam or the extra exam. I mentioned, okay, well, study the material, but some people are good at learning the material with a person there, and some people are better at just studying the answers and then going to these clubs. And this is what you discussed, is how important it is, where you didn't know very much about FT8, but you studied for it, and then it all kind of came together when you got to the club.
Right, and exactly, and doing is learning. So you can read about something, but until you've done it, you don't really know it.
Right. And that's what is so important about joining an amateur radio club that's active, an active one.
Right. And
Yep.
there's so many people who say, "Oh, the extras don't know what they knew, 40 years ago."
Yeah.
Which may be true. There was a CW requirement,
Right.
but to be honest with you, taking the exam is really the starting point of learning.
Right.
So, in a lifetime of learning.
Well, thank you, Peter, for giving us some insight. President of the Greater Bridgeport Amateur Radio Club. I really appreciate you being here, and thanks for joining us. This
Hey,
is
thank you
N1.
so much.
Yeah.
And Quack out there.
Oh, yeah. Quack, quack, 73.
73.
Thanks so much for watching Ham and Quackers.
Bye.
Bye.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack.